Hi everyone, my colleague Greg Charman, Kelverion's VP of Solutions and Services, is going to run through some of the features and functionality in Kelverion's Runbook Studio. Over to you, Greg.
So this is the Runbook Studio, the development environment where we're going to build out and author our automations. So just a quick guidance, what we have in here. Down the left-hand side, we have our toolbar. This is where we can see all of the commandlets that we're actually going to use to build out our automation and the modules and smart modules. We can also see the automations that we've pre-built and the runbooks we configured and the configuration of the Azure environment on the back of it. We've also got the ability to integrate into source code repositories like Azure DevOps and GitHub and similar, and the repository component allows us to see the files and mechanisms that are integrated into there. White space in the middle, this is where we build and create our automations and drag that to build that authoring. Our properties pane will be go and look at the configuration and settings of these different components, and it's context sensitive, so it changes depending on what we're actually connected to and driving around. So let's have a look at how we would build in the graphical authoring. So the first thing we're going to do, we've got a runbook. Let's give it a name so we can make it easy from demonstration. So we'll have and what it's immediately popped up is everything. We're looking at PowerShell, so we're doing that. You can't use spaces in PowerShell, so it's told us, the Runbook Studios worked that out and told us that. So we'll go and put the divider character in PowerShell, so an underscore. Then I want to pass some input properties into this runbook. These are the things I'm going to get from other systems. So we've got an alert, and it's going to tell us which computer and which service is faulty. So we'll have an input property of computer name, and then we'll have another input of service name. So we've got a couple of inputs coming in, and then we can start building out a runbook to actually get those properties. So the first thing we want to do is go and run that check to get the service. So I've got get service commandlet, drag it onto the screen, drop it on, and what it says is here is the commandlet, and we've got the name, we've got an indication so you know that it's a Microsoft commandlet, it's an on-premise type indicator, so we know it's coming from the PowerShell management module for doing general configuration with PowerShell. We want to get the service. Depending on the state of the service, we might want to go and create a new incident ticket. Now I'm going to use ServiceNow for my demonstration at this point to go and create that ServiceNow ticket. Obviously, if the ticket is, once we've created the ticket, we might want to be able to go in and restart a service if it's faulty. So that'll be part of having created the incident ticket. We're going to do some remediation on it so we can have a restart service. And if the service is actually running, then it's a clear out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record that, and I can get them go back into the monitoring tools to actually go back to the monitoring and clear out the alert so it's not tracking it. So what we're going to do now is we need to connect these activities together and link them up. So that's those link conditions that we're talking about. So I'm going to connect the activities together to say, do something in here and then go down this way. So let's go configure our get service activity. Now, every PowerShell commandlet has a set of properties that you can use with it. And different developers have created multiple parameter sets, so you can use it in different ways. So to find the commandlet, you can use Google, Bing, other search engines, see, is there a PowerShell command for doing X? Find the module, bring it into the Runbook Studio, and then you can start using the commandlets. And what we've made it easy for you to interact with those. In this case, the developer of the get service commandlet provided 3 different parameter sets. The one that makes sense is use the display name of the service to go and get some properties for it. So I'm going to pick that. As soon as I pick that, the Runbook Studio has said, there's an issue here. We've got a crash. It says you must configure some properties. The developer has defined a mandatory property that we must configure. We must tell it the display name of the service we want to get the status of. So I can go into here and configure that. So it's a data source. We've got multiple things we could use to configure this property, but we defined a couple of Runbook inputs that says here is the input on what we're doing. So I'm going to do Runbook input. I can see a list of Runbook inputs, and the first one is we got an alert. The alert tells me what service name is faulty, so I'm going to configure it to that. We have some optional properties in here, one of which is computer name. So the computer in which the service is faulty. So I can also combine that. I pull that up from the alert as well. So I'm going to do Runbook input, and that gives me my computer name. So now I've configured those two activities. You can see we've got a green tick that says activities configured successfully. So we then wanted that decision logic. So I can click on my link and define a condition. And what we want to do is turn on a condition and say we want to only go this way if some condition is true. And then we've got a condition builder, so a graphical way of making decisions on how we go from one direction or another. So if I just drag that down a little bit so we can see what's going on. For a condition, you go, something is true. In this case, I want to do the activity output, so the output of the get service activity. One of those properties, true, and what I want to have a look at is the get service activity, and then every commandlet has a number of outputs, and to save you having to know what they all are, we've actually got a browser that allows us to go and find all of those properties, and the output we're actually interested in is status. What is the status of the service? And in the case of Windows service, there are multiple statuses. It can be started, it could be stopped, it could be paused. So in this case, if you want to create an incident ticket, actually what we're interested in is if the status is not running, we want to go this way. So we can change the status to go is not equal to, and then a value, and I could map it to some other input, or I can actually make it a constant to say, I'm actually only interested in going this way if the Runbook input is not running. So if the service is not running, we want to go down this way, create an incident ticket, and then go on and try doing some diagnostics like restarting the service. I can also give it a label. So you can make it easy for your colleagues who are following up saying, what's it trying to do? So then we got our create ServiceNow ticket. And again, we're trying to tie into a service desk. The thing with service desks is they're all built slightly differently. In ServiceNow, everything's of type record, and the type of records you can get depends on the modules that you bought from ServiceNow. So you can have incident, change, problem, a whole range of CMDB type classes, service maps, informations. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect to ServiceNow, and you need a connection. So we'll pull out our connection to ServiceNow. That gives me then access to all of the tables. And as you can see, there are many different table types. But within our studio, we've built that in to make it easy. So we can pull in the instant ticket table. As soon as I pull the instant ticket table in, my activity says I've still got some things I've got to configure. And you can see it says there are some parameters. There are a couple of mandatory properties that you have to connect to a service desk. In an automation, one of them is you need the run as connection. Now, the Runbook Studio knows where you're building and operating a Runbook. So it actually can track through and go, right, you need a connection asset. And to talk to ServiceNow, here is the connection asset that you actually have within that subscription. So I can map to that straightforwardly. In our ServiceNow instance, I also have to say which customer I'm raising the ticket for. So we've got a fixed value. So I have raised that against Kelverion. Then I have some optional properties. And what we've got is these are the other fields on an instant ticket, and they're optional because they're not made mandatory in the database of ServiceNow. It's typically only through the UI. So I can go and configure any of these fields. Again, lots of different fields that we can go and interact with. And I'm going to pick a couple. So I'm going to go with impact. And I can go and configure that with a value. Now, we've also pulled out those values out of the system as well. So these are the ones that are being configured by the admin. So we can translate them from what ServiceNow knows into what the API understands, which is unique values for each of those fields, not the text values. So we're making it simple from a design point of view, graphical, forms driven. You don't have to fiddle around with understanding the APIs. And then I could also put some information into the ticket, like, for example, we'll go put the short description, and I want to use some of the information out of my get service activity. So how do I do that? Activity output, which activity use, and you can use any activity that's upstream within your automation. So pick get service, pick my field path, again, pick my output, and the one I'm interested in is the status. So I'm going to put into the short description some word and the status of a given service. There we are. We've done a get service status. If it's not running, we go this way, we create an incident ticket. I could then go on and do some diagnostics and restart that service. But equally, if the service is running, I want to go this way, which will go back and close that alert. And again, same sort of thing, do link conditions, apply condition, build that in there. So we're going to do exactly the same. Activity output, get service, pick the field path, status. In this case, it's equal to. So if it is running, we want to go this way and go off and close that alert. So we go down to running. And again, pop that in there. So we go. And there you have a very quick demonstration of how you build runbooks in this graphical authoring approach. You get some inputs, we do some checks. If one condition is true, we go that way. If another condition is true, we go that way. Then we can go on and configure those other activities.
So there we are. Hopefully that's given you a flavour for what our low-code, no-code automation tool has to offer. If you'd like to find out more, you can visit our website, kelverion.com, or get in touch with the team by emailing info@kelverion.com. Thanks for watching.